This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Welcome to it, my friends. It's Tuesday. Thank you for dialing it in. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Brought to you in part this hour by Mesa. Good business, good health, great schools. Mesa making it happen this hour. Is Joe Biden going to make it happen? Well, he just might. He just might. In fact, friends close to the vice president say his time is now. In fact, his close friends and advisors believe the stars are aligning for his likely presidential bid. Hillary Clinton's email controversy, her flatlining in the polls and plummeting, actually, in the polls, creates a big opening, according to the people close to him. People who have known Biden for decades say the mood of the American electorate is for authentic and genuine, which is a pretty good jab at Clinton. Lowell Junkins, who ran for governor in Iowa back in the 80s, has been a longtime Biden backer. He said this is the time Joe fits. He noted the success of plain-spoken White House contenders such as Donald Trump, Ben Carson, and Bernie Sanders, though I don't think there's much comparison between Biden and those folks. Voters are sick of facades. Biden can honestly say, I know where you come from. Mary Carey Foley from New Hampshire has known him for 30 years. You can't teach someone to be spontaneous. Another jab at Clinton. But unlike some of the actual outsiders, Biden has been in Washington for 36 years. Make that 43 years. 36 in the Senate, 7 years. The White House, 43 years. Jared Bernstein, the vice president's former chief economist, said a potential Biden campaign will prosper if voters are looking for authenticity. The question is, what about the gaffes? Junkins thinks voters are willing to overlook the gaffes. Like in Biden's prior presidential bids in 1988 and 2008. Voters now want someone who will speak from the heart, he said, even if they make a mistake. Biden will turn 73 in November. Appears to be inching closer to launching a presidential bid, though he has pointed out that he and his family are mourning the death of their son, Beau Biden. And he's unsure whether he will be able to commit a third run for the White House. Make no mistake, he's in. I've told you this for a long time. Here's what Biden had to say in a presidential primary debate in 2007. Biden described how he has dealt with tragedy in his life. He said, quote, "My mom has an expression. She says that God sends no cross you are unable to bear. All the prayer in the world will not stop a hurricane, but prayer will give you the courage to be able to respond to the devastation." I'm telling you, Joe Biden's in this thing. In other political news from Washington, Kevin McCarthy, the Republican from California, has officially announced his bid to be the next Speaker of the House to replace John Boehner, who has resigned. Yep. The number two sent a letter to GOP lawmakers yesterday pledging a fight for conservative principles and asking for their support as the next Speaker. He also spoke on Fox News to Brett Baier on what he will do if elected Speaker and how he will handle the group of Republicans who wanted Boehner thrown out, which he was. Here's what McCarthy had to say.
Well, as Speaker, the Speaker sets the culture. And the culture in Washington has to change. You know, we've been governing by crisis. And there's too many people in Washington who care about power institutions and don't care about making a difference in the lives of the average American. Look, it's not going to be easy to change this culture. And it won't happen overnight, but that's my mission. I believe in Reagan's 11th commandment. I believe we are a team. I believe everybody has a right to be part of the team. I'm not the manager, I'm the team captain. So we're all a part of it, and everybody has an opportunity to help change. We just have to come together and work in the same direction. We're going to start that tomorrow night with a conference, so laying out our agenda.
One of the big knocks against McCarthy from the get-go, from the far right, is that he is too much interested in some sort of an amnesty plan when it comes to the illegal aliens. They believe that Kevin McCarthy is interested in an amnesty plan when it comes to illegal aliens and those that are here in the country overstaying their visa, no matter where they're from. So McCarthy will face, other challenges. Steve Scalise, one of the leadership members of the Republican Party, also going to be in this race. But I think he's right. We need to change the attitude. Team captain's fine, not the team manager. That's fine. The question is, will all the folks who are disenchanted with John Boehner now be able to gather around Kevin McCarthy and give him a run at this thing? But the disappointments are clear, and the reasons are also clear. Since November of 2014, nothing has happened that wasn't happening previous to the big wins by the Republicans in 2014. A lot of promises were made. A lot of promises just simply have not been kept. And now people are calling for the removal of Mitch McConnell from the United States Senate as well. They say, listen, he hasn't done anything either. He's rolled over for Barack Obama time and again. I happen to agree with that point of view. That sentiment is not lost upon me. Now, there is a challenge here, though, trading in the devil you know for the devil you don't. You might come out ahead. You might not do any better. You might, in fact, do worse. But I'm willing to watch and see what happens here, and obviously it's going to happen. John Boehner stepping down at the end of October. He will be gone. And I'm going to guess that Kevin McCarthy is the most likely person to occupy that chair. At least that's the way it looks right now. But it's politics and it's Washington, and it's hard to say how it'll play out. But Kevin McCarthy is the odds-on favorite, at least at this point. And if you haven't heard what Donald Trump had to say yesterday, he came out, speaking of Republican candidates, with a new tax plan that he says will take another 31 million people off the tax rolls, lower the taxes for the rich, lower taxes on businesses, and jumpstart this economy. Here's part of what the Donald had to say about his new tax plan for America.
This is a plan that's simple, that's a major reduction. I think people are going to be very happy. We've already had some very good reviews. I did the plan with some of the leading scholars and economists and tax experts that there are in this country. They love it. They say, why hasn't this been done before? And this is my wheelhouse. That's what I do well. The economy is what I do well. Whenever they do polls, I always come out way above everybody else on the economy. And on leadership, by the way, but I won't say that.
I appreciate you not saying that. There's Donald Trump, his populist message on taxes. Will it win? Will it resonate? It just might. It might be another policy winner for Trump. We'll see what happens. It's 14 after on this Tuesday. You're listening to The Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
You know, if you want to be successful, surround yourself with successful people. If you want to go nowhere, hang out with people that are going nowhere, and that's exactly where you'll end up. Which is why we invited Jilliene Helman here, the founder and CEO of RealtyMogul.com, named by Forbes as one of the Forbes 30 under 30 to pay attention to. She started her company in 2012, raised $45 million in venture capital, and now she has reached the ripe old age of 28. Jilliene, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So you're pretty successful at crowdsourcing and raising the capital you need. And what's interesting here is that your investments are in real estate, and that's why you have RealtyMogul.com as your website, and you've funded hundreds of properties. And for some folks like myself, we look at the stock market and say, you know, that's nothing more than going to the horse track for a lot of us. You know, if we don't have a direct, I'm not a hedge fund manager, so therefore I don't have a direct connection or any control over what happens here. Real estate has always been more attractive to me. I have a few different pieces for that reason. Where are we with real estate in this country, and why did you head in that direction?
So I think that there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity in real estate. No matter what asset class you're going to invest in, you want to be sure that you're looking for opportunity. And in comparison to the stock market, it's tremendously less volatile. So the economy is moving, the stock market is moving. You're seeing wide swings in the stock market over the last couple of weeks where the value of a real property is not going to move up and down all that much, on a day-to-day basis the way the stock market will.
That part's true. In 2008, 2007, 8, 9, though, a lot of folks saw their property values plummet. I saw some lose value. I never was behind on a property I bought, thankfully. But for some folks, that can also be very frightening, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. I think real estate is about long-term investing. If you look at where a tremendous amount of wealth has been created in the United States, it's people who are long-term thinkers and long-term investors in real estate. Those folks who held on in 07, 08, and 09, now we're looking at the value of their properties, and most of those are above market value where they were in those times.
Yeah, that part's true. Now, there have been changes in regulations, and that's one of the reasons we have you here today. Changes in regulations that have now made it easier than before for people to be able to expand their portfolios by investing in real estate funds, and more specifically, getting into these crowdfunding investment funds. So you're buying a piece of real estate, if I'm understanding this correctly, but you're buying it with a group of people, and so therefore your risk is diminished. Your upside's a little smaller, but you get to share the risk and share the reward.
Yeah, crowdfunding is all about access to new types of real estate transactions that you wouldn't otherwise have seen. And I think it also gives investors the opportunity to diversify without having to deal with the hassles of managing a property, right? You're not dealing with tenants and toilets and trash. You can go online, click a couple of buttons, and get access to real estate.
Yeah, let me tell you, being a landlord was not exactly what I thought it was going to be. It's everything it's cracked up to be in hindsight. Oh, boy, because everything you just mentioned is true. At 2 in the morning, my toilet doesn't work, and you're calling me at 2 in the morning. Okay, great. And so to avoid the management headaches, which can be many, and costly and expensive, this is one way to go. So how have you been able to attract tens of millions of dollars to your company, Realty Mogul, and make this all function and go forward and work so well?
I think any entrepreneur focuses on one thing, and that's execution. In our model, that means bringing investment opportunities to a group of qualified investors that otherwise didn't have access, right? They can invest in single properties, they can invest in funds, and they can do it at the comfort of their living room.
Well, and that's key right there. So if somebody's listening today and said, you know what, I'd like to take some of the money I have in the market, put it in a place like this. I've thought about this. In fact, I've talked to a couple of my managers a couple of different times. How do I get in real estate? Well, there's all these hurdles. It's not like you can just go buy real estate. And I think for a lot of them, they just don't want to. I think there's more involved sometimes in buying real estate. And they're just more comfortable putting people into the stock market for a variety of reasons. But I think for some people, the mindset's going to have to change because the investor mindset is changing. Am I right or wrong?
I think you're 100% right. As there's more access and it becomes as simple to buy real estate as it is to buy stocks and bonds online, more and more people are going to get exposure to this asset class, and I think that's a good thing.
I think you've got something there, and especially when you look at different places. Now, are there certain sectors of the real estate market you like to be in? Do you like to be in urban areas? Do you like to be in rural settings? Do you like farmland? Do you like Renaissance zones in downtown areas? What do you prefer?
Yeah, I like infill, right? You never want to be in a rural neighborhood or rural area. I mean, one of the things that we're really focused on right now is what kind of real estate is going to be resilient in a recession, right? We know that we've had a pretty big run-up in the economy, so what kind of real estate is going to perform well? One example of that is mobile home parks, right? You've got over 20 million Americans who live in mobile home parks, and they need a place to live, whether the economy is great or the economy is in the tanker. So, looking at real estate that can be somewhat recession-proof in infill markets where there's population growth, where there's job creation, those are some of the things that we look at.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. A good friend of mine owns 2 mobile home parks. He's done very well for a very long time because of exactly what you just laid out. And he has been involved in that because people have to live somewhere. And if times are tight, it's more affordable to live there and have 3 bedrooms and a bath than it is in a single-family stick-built home, right?
Right.
Right, there you have it. So, all right. So, where would you give people advice to go forward to find out more about what you're doing at Realty Mogul and find out about maybe even getting involved with your specific company? How do they find out more about this real estate opportunity?
You can find us directly online. We're at realtymogul.com.
Jilliene, I greatly appreciate it. Jilliene Helman, founder and CEO of RealtyMogul.com, one of the Forbes 30 Under 30 list maker, and I can see why. Very serious individual. Jilliene, thank you so much.
Thank you.
There you have it. Jilliene on the Steve Gruber Show. It's 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. And I've thought about that for a long time. You know, why are we basically herded into the stock market when, when there are so many other different types of opportunities out there? Maybe I don't want to be in the stock market. Maybe I want a piece of real estate. Maybe I want to be in that Renaissance zone where they're redoing, parts of Grand Rapids or Lansing, or where investment might be more amenable to a good profit down the road. Something to think about. RealtyMogul.com, the place to check out. Still to come today, the growing relationship between the United States and India, and what happens to Mitch McConnell going forward. Those topics still ahead this Tuesday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
Moody's going coast to coast. That's the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi returning to the United States, strengthening a steady improving relationship between the two nations. The world's largest democracy is India, and the world's best republic, of course, this nation. Lisa Curtis, a senior research fellow for Asian Studies at the Center, the Davis Institute of National Security and Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation. That's a lot, Lisa, but I got it out. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, a lot of folks, even today, don't realize that India, a few months ago, officially became the largest, most populated nation on Earth. It's the biggest country out there, closely related to the United States. Why don't we have a very close relationship with India? You would think we would.
Well, I think it's a hangover from the Cold War era, of course, when India was closer to Russia than the United States, and India was, followed socialism, and that's part of the reason they're having the economic problems they still have today. But, a lot's changed since then, and I think in the last decade we have seen a strengthening of our partnership. It's been gradual, but it's definitely on an upward trajectory, and I would say under the current Prime Minister Modi, we've seen even more of a strengthening of that partnership. Prime Minister Modi has really reached out to U.S. investors. He has plans for reforming India's economy, and we saw that with his visit to Silicon Valley, where he met with all the top IT executives, Google, Facebook, Tesla Motors, the list goes on, and he made a case for why U.S. investors should think about India and look at what's happening with this, large democracy. I mean, that's another reason that I think our countries will become closer in the future, because we both value democracy. We both understand the importance of nurturing democracy.
Still a little bit shocked about something you said here, Lisa, just a moment ago. You said that India is still suffering from the effects of socialism, which is confusing to me because I've heard Bernie Sanders' stump speech. I thought socialism was great for everybody.
Well, if you needed proof that it's not, I think India would be a good example because, in fact, unfortunately, the socialist policies that they followed, for decades, still sort of haunt the current economic environment there. And even though you have Prime Minister Modi, who I think personally is an economic reformer and wants to move the country forward, he still faces political obstacles in doing so, and he is having a difficult time in moving these reforms forward. So I think it's clear that has very much hurt the Indian economy, but the good news is we've got a leader there who wants to bring changes and is seeking to do so, and he's popular. I think his approval ratings, 87% of Indians think favorably of Prime Minister Modi. So he's got a huge mandate. And so the hope, here in the U.S. is that he uses that mandate to push these reforms forward and unleash the potential of the Indian economy.
Well, you would think. I mean, again, you've watched what the Chinese have been able to do since, very relatively recently, in the last 15 years, really, since, Hong Kong, turned over from the British to the Chinese, is really where that fast track for the Chinese began. If the Indians had in the same direction, think about the possibility of an immense middle class in India. And you're right, if you want to, and all kidding aside, if you want to see the most heartbreaking pictures, if you research poverty pictures in the nation of India. For people who think there's poverty in the United States, just do a little Google search of poverty in India for the heartbreak of what socialism has done for just over 1 billion people. You can take a very close look. We're on the phone with Lisa Curtis today, Senior Research Fellow for Asian Studies Center at the Davis Institute for National Security and Foreign Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Okay, so what kind of, as you see, alliances in the world seem to be shifting some. I don't think there's a better pickup for the United States than India, potentially. You see people shifting and countries shifting to Vladimir Putin's side of the chessboard, if you will. But for America, what a terrific ally, because the Indians many have immigrated to the United States. They go to school here, they create businesses here, and it's a very symmetrical relationship in many ways, wouldn't you say?
I absolutely agree, and I think one of the most important things to keep in mind, India is a non-hegemonic power, and the U.S. would like to see India's political, economic, and military strength increase because we want to cooperate in preventing, China's emergence as a hegemonic power in Asia, and I think that's one of the keys to the relationship right now is working with India so that India can play a stabilizing role in the broader Asia Pacific and offset, China's rise in many ways, and also counterterrorism. The U.S. and India share the same interest in countering terrorism, and their, cybersecurity. We have the same concerns regarding cybersecurity. So there are a lot of converging strategic interests that we have in the relationship. And you mentioned the Indian American community here and how prosperous they are. And I think that's one of the things that was highlighted by Modi's trip to Silicon Valley.
Sure.
Nearly 20% of the startups in Silicon Valley are by Indian origin people. So, clearly there has been a positive relationship here with Indian Americans coming to the U.S., contributing to the growth of, our high-tech industry. But what Modi wants is he wants some of those Indians to come back to India and to invest in India. And so that's the case that he was making.
Yes, hardworking, industrious people. We want to embrace as many hardworking, industrious people as we can. No question. You want them involved in your economy. And if they can come here and contribute and create wealth, we should absolutely embrace that. And so I give the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, credit for doing what he's doing right now. And he deserves it.
Yeah, I think he does. I think he's really energized India's foreign policy. He's reached out not only to the U.S., but to countries like Japan and Australia, Korea. He has certainly, trying to make India a leader on the global stage, and, he's really brought a lot of energy to that effort. And then, doing the town hall meeting at Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg. What an image, 65-year-old Indian politician, with fresh face of Mark Zuckerberg, and yet they're speaking the same language. Modi is very attuned to the social media. He's got millions of followers on Twitter and Facebook, and he's very active on these programs. And one of his goals is to connect 1 billion Indians to the internet. And, so this is one of his big goals, and the idea is to connect them to banking services, government services. So, he has some lofty ambitions, but he is definitely energizing the relationship with the U.S., and it's a relationship that the U.S. should also invest in. I think it's going to be very important to us in the future.
Lisa Curtis from the Heritage Foundation, thank you so much for your time today. Tuesday on the Steve Gruber Show. Welcome to it. Phone number here is 888-900-9966 if you care to drop a comment. Of course, you can check it all out at stevegruber.com. stevegruber.com. Our next guest here, Bill Walton, the Vice President of the Center for National Policy and Conservative Leadership. The continuous instinct of Mitch McConnell and John Boehner to cave into Barack Obama has finally run John Boehner out of town. The question is, will Mitch McConnell follow? I'll pack his bags for him. But at the end of the day, when we trade in the devil we know for the devil we don't, is it going to be any better? Is it? Is Kevin McCarthy going to be that much better? Is someone else in the United States Senate going to be that much better? I guess, it's a nice thought. Bill Walton, welcome to the program.
Hey, Steve. Great to talk with you again.
Great to have you back. Donald Trump, Carly Fiorina, Ben Carson, and some other outsiders working hard for the GOP nomination. Donald Trump putting forth a populist tax message yesterday. It seems to get a pretty good reception from people in general. Pundits tearing it apart, but never matters much what the pundits think. They only have one vote apiece, too. What do you make of all of this towards this movement towards outsiders, if you will?
Well, I think you touched on it just a moment ago. I mean, the issue is Boehner, well, now somebody else besides Boehner, and McConnell, and the failure of Congress to do anything with the majorities. I mean, we have more Republicans in the House of Representatives, I think, at any time since Calvin Coolidge in the 20s. They've had a huge majority, and they keep acting like they're in the minority. And, they seem to think that their job is to pass bills that Barack Obama would sign. And, what we want is them to pass bills that he won't sign, and he'll have to veto them and then own the outcome.
That is what's so frustrating, I think. I think what is so frustrating for the voters that went to the polls in November of 2014, sweeping victories. It was the drive for 245, and they ended up with, 247, the Republicans did in the House. 54 United States senators, and yet it's as if Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi are still in charge because nothing has changed. The whole notion, we were told, we're going to send bill after bill to the president's desk, and he's going to be forced to make a decision, either sign it or veto it. I don't know of a single incident, not one single piece of legislation that's been sent to the president's desk that, forced a veto, not one. Not on Iran, not on the trade partnership deal, not on anything I can think of. Am I wrong? Am I missing a piece of legislation somewhere because I can't find it?
Nope, it's not there. I mean, they're 0 for 30.
Yeah.
And you meet with McConnell, which I have. He is a process guy. He loves the tradition of the Senate, and he likes the Senate and its traditions more than he seems to like the country. And he's preserving all those institutional rights is a priority that no one else shares except him. And the problem we've got is that as long as McConnell's in the Senate, it almost doesn't matter who becomes the Speaker. I mean, it could be, even if we got Jim Jordan, who's probably the strongest guy we've got to bring about the right things, even if he becomes Speaker, the House can pass bills, they send it to the Senate, they're going to die in the Senate because McConnell is there to kill that, and I don't see anybody in the Senate stepping up to have him step aside.
Yeah, and I think that Kevin McCarthy is your most likely person. Jim Jordan from Ohio, interesting guy. He's 51 years old. He represents the 4th District there. Interesting guy, but it's going to be McCarthy, a guy who not that long ago seemed to endorse a plan that called for amnesty. So, where did we get anywhere?
Well, I think the only thing we can do is continue to pound on them to do the right thing. We've got Cruz who's talking about showboats in the Senate. I mean, what McConnell does is he sets up a vote where people can vote on something like Planned Parenthood, and then it doesn't really matter because you get a bill and then it gets thrown into the big bill and they send it through anyway. I just think we've got to keep the pressure on.
You might be right. Yeah, the problem with Ted Cruz is I think that his showboating, his need to showboat is also pretty well pronounced, and I don't think that he's electable. I don't know of the four people that are considered outside candidates, including Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, Carly Fiorina, and Ben Carson. I don't know that if any of the four will survive the process. I really don't believe that Cruz has much of a chance. Very small percentage. Donald Trump, continues to hold on. Carly has risen in the polls, and Ben has been buoyed. But I think it's a fall love affair with the outsiders. And I believe it's more likely that somebody like Marco Rubio or John Kasich at the end of the process will rise to the top.
Well, Marco's a very attractive guy, and I think Marco's probably, actually Kasich could as well. I mean, they both gotten elected in purple states, and I think either one of them would appeal to the, to the independents. But I think Marco's absolutely the most attractive candidate we've got in terms of rhetoric and message and life story. And with all these guys, it depends on who they bring with them to the office. Ed Meese, who worked for Reagan, said famously, personnel is policy. And the thing that Reagan brought to the presidency is he brought a lot of people who were very, very true north conservatives, and they got a lot good done because he had a lot of people staffing the administration who believed as he did. The next president's issue is going to be Barack Obama has staffed every single agency with people that probably would have been happy in the SDS in Ann Arbor in 1963. You look at labor, you look at the EPA, you look at every agency.
A lot of work to turn it around, Bill, that's for sure.
But the staffers are a problem. So the next president's got to go root and branch to change the people in there.
Bill Walton, thank you so much.